What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burnett. In today's episode, I'm previewing Week 13 of the college football season. We've arrived at the week in the calendar that kind of opens up in terms of not too many huge, interesting games. There are some key ones to go over, and I also want to spend some time in this video going over a huge rivalry at the FCS level that is a big game, not just in that state, but across the FCS landscape. But before I get into it, if you go on to enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date whenever I upload. Getting things started, the Brawl of the Wild, the trophy for the Great Divide. It's a big, literal mountain of a trophy that weighs, I think, a few hundred pounds. Big matchup rivalry game between number 3, Montana State, and number 2, Montana. Now getting into this game, to me, want to go over kind of the key guys. Offensively, Kielai Ayat is the quarterback for Montana. He's thrown for almost 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Michael Wortham is his leading receiver with 827 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then freshman Brooks Davis has also been a key factor in that offense for almost 500 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. They don't run the ball a whole lot, but they do have a 1,000-yard rusher in Eli Gilman, who's also ran for 16 touchdowns. Montana does tend to pass the ball a little bit more, but they do rely on that ground game pretty well also. For Montana State, they've got a dual-threat quarterback who leads the way for an offense that does prefer to run the ball. You've got Justin Lamson, who's passed for over 2,100 yards, 19 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions. And he's also ran for an additional 509 yards and 10 touchdowns. Julius Davis and Adam Jones are 2 running backs with right around either 650 or above. Jones is just below 650 yards with 647. And then wide receiver Taco Dowler is the main target for Lawson in the passing game, or Lamson, with 723 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. On the defensive side of things, you've got Elijah Tolbert, who has 62 total tackles to lead Montana. You've got linebacker Peyton Wing, who has 3.5 sacks and 3 interceptions. Does a really good job in the middle of that Grizzlies defense. Hunter Peck at defensive end with 3.5 sacks. And then Kenzel Lawler has 2 interceptions, 10 pass deflections. And another guy to watch kind of rushing off the edge, a guy who could factor into both the Montana State passing game and the running game, is Diesel Wilkinson, who has 3 sacks. So look for him to potentially get into that backfield. Next up, flipping over to the other side, you've got Caden Dowler, who's Taco's brother. He has 71 total tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a sack. So he contributes in a variety of ways for the Montana State defense. Kenneth Eden IV has 4 sacks. Defensive back Carson Williams leads the way with 5 pass deflections. And then defensive ends, Zach Cruz and Dominic Solano both have 3 sacks or more. I think this is a really intriguing matchup thus far in the season. Montana has proven to be the better team, but this is a rivalry game where anything can happen. I'm going to go with the Grizzlies here. I've got Montana winning 31-28 to pick up a huge win that would clinch the Big Sky Conference title and that automatic bid, though both teams will certainly get into the FCS playoffs. Also, kind of something of note, I'm not going to preview all of these games. The headliner I will, but we've got kind of a return of the Pac-12, both this week and even next week a little bit. This week, we've got USC-Oregon. I'll take, obviously, a deep look at that game. But you've also got Washington at UCLA and the big game, Cal at Stanford. Next week, you're also going to have Oregon State, Washington State, the second time they've met this season. Then you're also going to have, obviously, the LA battle, UCLA against USC, and also Washington against Oregon at Washington. But going over that USC-Oregon game, this is the other big game. There's a few other games that kind of have some high stakes in the college football race, but not as big as this one, in my opinion. You got number 15 USC, who's 8-2, at number 7 Oregon, who's 9-1. This is a case of strength versus strength. USC has the sixth best total offense in college football, and Oregon, maybe a little bit under the radar, has the 3rd best total defense. Jaden Maiava, Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane, and King Miller lead the way for that Trojans offense. Bryce Betcher with 77 total tackles, Mateo Uagalele, Tiatum Tuioti with 5.5 sacks lead the way for the Ducks defense. On the flip side, Eric Gentry is really the guy in the middle that captains, quarterbacks that USC defense. He's going to be going up against Dante Moore at quarterback for the Ducks. You got Noah Whittington at running back. He leads the way. You've got Kenyon Sadiq and Malik Benson. But the key to watch here is DeCorian Moore's health. Obviously, he missed last week against Iowa. So will he be healthy for this game? That's going to be a big question for Oregon to answer. I think regardless of whether he plays or not, I think Oregon's defense will make the necessary stops to win this one. I'm going with Oregon 31, USC 24. Moving over to the Big 12, this is a really interesting game in the Big 12 race. It would have been, I think, even more interesting if Cincinnati hadn't lost last week or a couple weeks ago. You've got BYU, number 11 in the country, 9-1 at 7-3 Cincinnati. Both of these teams have top 5 Big 12 offenses led by quarterback Bear Bachmeier for BYU and then Brandon Sorsby for Cincinnati. I think what will win the day here is BYU's defense, which ranks 3rd in the conference behind only Texas Tech and Utah in total defense. I'm going to go with BYU in a good kind of defensive battle here, 24-17. Next up, Pitt, who's 7-3 at number 16, Georgia Tech, who's 9-1. We've talked about kind of what the Panthers have here at the tail end of the season. They, in their path this season, made a change at quarterback, and that proved to be the right decision by Pat Narduzzi. They've looked a lot better since. Obviously, last week ran into a Notre Dame team that is just rolling on their way, with 95% likelihood to the college football playoff unless they were to slip up. Otherwise, Pitt's looked really good. Georgia Tech, meanwhile, outside of that game against NC State, has also looked really good, particularly on offense. You've got Haynes King at quarterback. He's leading the way for the number 1 offense in the ACC. I think an interesting matchup to me, if we were to get in the ACC championship game, would be Georgia Tech against Louisville. You'd have the number 1 offense against the number 1 defense. In this game, I think Georgia Tech does too much on offense. I think Pitt maybe hangs around. I'm going with Georgia Tech 35, Pitt 24. Finally, an intriguing game out of the SEC, though I think one of these teams is a little overrated. You've got number 22, Missouri, 7-3, at number 8, Oklahoma, 8-2. I think in this game, the Sooners have the number 1 defense in the SEC. They proved that last week, and by playing really well on special teams as well in their 23-21 win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Tigers have also dealt with injuries this season, Bo Perbula at quarterback. I think this is a game that Oklahoma, as long as they don't get caught looking ahead to LSU and even potentially the college football playoff, they should win, and I think win fairly comfortably. I'm going with Oklahoma 28, Missouri 17. But that is my look at Week 13. Let me know in the comments below your guys' predictions for this week. Looking forward to breaking down the action from this week, and then obviously a huge final week of the season, as it always is in college football. But that is all for this episode of College Football Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I'm your host, Peter Burnett, signing out. Peace.